for everybody for attending in person or attending online. Before opening the meeting, can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance to turn off their phones or put them on mute to avoid any feedback? And any remote participants, if they can keep their cameras or microphones off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not to use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. The meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of this meeting. It will be retained in accordance with the council data retention policy. Recording of the meeting may be added to the council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in a remote attendance. If members could speak loudly and clearly into the microphones and switch their microphones off after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. I can go through for those in attendance any all the emergency evacuation procedures, but I see we are all councillors here, and I dare say you could read this to me, repeat it back to me verbatim. Do you require me to go through this? No, but suffice to say, if the alarm does go off, there is no drill or whatever, so it will be for real, and we will all meet outside in the car park. So we do have officers from KCC and SBC who are online, hopefully all there. I will say to those that are attending online, the spider print on the screen in front of me, I think I'd need a telescope to read or see whether you're indicating whether you're wanting to speak or not. And those that don't have a picture, I might not recognise who MN is or CF. So please do shout, or hopefully Mr. Atway will call you in. But there we go. So apologies for absence. Any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any apologies for absence.
Excellent. Are there any declarations of interest? Mr. Washington, pop it on. It's not working, is it? Okay, duly noted. Thank you. Right, moving on then. The minutes of the last meeting on the 5th of December 2022. Councillor Bonnie chaired that for me. I was unfortunately away, but thank you very much for that. Can I sign those minutes as a true and accurate record? Yes? Lovely. Are there any public speakers? I can't see anybody in the chamber. No public speakers. Right, moving on then. Part 1, reports for recommendation to Swale Borough Council Policy and Resources Committee. Agenda item 6, proposed parking bays, Forbes Road, Faversham, update report. Can the officer introduce the report? I don't know who's doing this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's Brett O'Connell here. I'm doing the report on behalf of Mike Knowles, the engineering manager. So yeah, there's no changes to the submitted report, but I'm happy to take any questions back to the engineering manager from any of the members.
Okay. Yes. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Mr. Knowles for all his work that he's done on this report, and also thank KCC for their assistance they gave to Swale Borough Council in compiling the document. However, I would like to remind members here that the Department for Transport Highway Code was updated back in January last year, which included a hierarchy of road users, which simply put means that hierarchy places those road users who are most at risk in the event of a collision at the top scale of the scale or hierarchy, which means pedestrians at the top, because their lack of protection makes them extremely vulnerable in an incident. So the lower you are in the hierarchy, the more harm you and the vehicle can do. I think there's always room for improvement. And as responsible councils, I think we should be looking for ways to facilitate the hierarchy of road users and the safer driving that it will bring. Now, this proposal for parking bays was primarily in response to both concerns over the speed of traffic, which is still noted in the residents' comments in this report, and the pedestrians that use the zebra crossing further down Forbes Road. And you'll note that responses, both for and against the proposals, commented on the speed of traffic and safety at the zebra crossing. Well, in regard to street parking, it will provide traffic calming that would help towards reducing the average speed of traffic on Forbes Road. And members should note that KCC have plans to make improvements to the Forbes Road zebra crossing, which includes the narrowing of the mouth of Athelston Road. I want it also noted that the Faversham freight traffic is not directed down Forbes Road due to its low bridge, but either Love Lane in the east or the Western Link in the west. And remembering these parking bays, the purpose of them is to slow traffic down, and there may well be stationary traffic, but no more than there is already. I particularly agree with the resident who said that anti-idling signs must be put up and enforced along Forbes Road, particularly at busy times when traffic queues. Note in paragraph 3.7, I was particularly concerned that cost is being raised as a potential reason not to proceed with this proposal. The cost of lining and the traffic order is minuscule in comparison to a person's life, and I refer members back to the Highway Code hierarchy of road users. And with your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add to my quoted comments as ward member and chair of Faversham Town Council's Active Travel Committee. I'd like to propose that whilst this committee notes the results of the swept path analysis, it does not agree to abandon the proposal, but supports on-street parking as a means of traffic calming along Forbes Road and its contribution to making 20 miles an hour on Forbes Road much more self-enforcing. Further, I would ask that Swale Borough Council engage with Faversham Town Council and Watling Ward Council members to seek solutions to any outstanding issues that my proposal might lead to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Can we take, I've only got Councillor Saunders. If we take, sorry, I didn't see you. Can we have Councillor Saunders first and then Councillor Simmons?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I share some of Councillor Thomas's concerns about this paper. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into preparing it, both by Swale and KCC officers. But I think we've kind of lost the thread a bit, and that the objective of trying to make changes here is very much to slow traffic. As Councillor Thomas said, this isn't the route that HGVs use into the town, but in the paper there's quite a bit of reference to the reasons for not proceeding being related to HGVs. Narrowing the road is about slowing is a way of slowing traffic, and a number of the objections are saying, well, motorists aren't driving at 20 miles an hour, and rather than accepting that we need to find ways of slowing them, really seem to be saying let's just leave things as they are and let motorists drive at whatever speed they want. One of the things I find most concerning in the paper is actually under health implications, where there's no reference to the safety issue for pedestrians at the Forbes Road crossing, which really is obviously a major health consideration. And there's also no reference to the fact that this proposal is about promoting active travel, about slowing traffic, making it easier for people to walk and cycle, which will result in health improvements. In fact, it's all about drivers suffering from road rage if they're forced to sit for a few minutes in a traffic queue. And I don't think that is really a sound basis for highways policy. Later in the meeting, we've got a report on active travel. And I think if you look at national policy, it's very much driven, as Councillor Thomas says, by the hierarchy of road users and the needs now of pedestrians and cyclists. So I would support what Councillor Thomas says, and I would certainly like more work to be done on this. And I don't see a clear reason why we shouldn't proceed with the proposal at 3.7. The only reason it's not being put forward is that it could be considered to be disproportionate in cost, but that's not a clearly stated view why we shouldn't proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. We have Councillor Simmons. We'll then go back to Brett for any questions, and then I think we've got Anthony Hook online, and then we'll go back to the office. So Councillor Simmons, and then we'll.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Those members who checked the minutes of the last meeting will note that I raised some concerns about congestion backing up, and while still being sympathetic to residents. I've had time to think about this, and actually I'm more in agreement with Councillors Thomas and Saunders that it seems a missed opportunity, in my view, to just abandon this whole process, and I'd like to see it continued with. There is no doubt that traffic does travel down and up the Mall, maybe not above 20 miles an hour or even 30 miles an hour, but it is a hazard, and there is a problem in that the corner in the Mall, as it were, between the Mall and Forbes Road, where quite a number of school children who arrive at the station come through the underpass and then walk up to go to the Abbey School. They cross there right on the corner, and it's extremely dangerous, I think. And so I think that anything which can be done to act as a slowing down of traffic is a good thing. And so I would support this not being abandoned, Chairman, and at least trying to proceed with it. The question about air quality, I know air quality is important, but we must remember that all the time the quality of vehicles is increasing, and so that over time, certainly by 2030, apparently, all new cars are going to be electric, and we should be thinking about that. The only other concern I have is about buses going up and down, and whether they have clear access. But I'm not sure that the Mall is it's certainly only a single-decker bus route because of the bridge. So again, I think it's a shame to abandon it. So I'd be in favour of us continuing with it, Chairman.
Right. Thank you. If we could have Brett O'Connor come back and just clear up any points that have been raised so far, and then we'll go to Anthony Hook, and then if there are any other speakers. But what we haven't had is a proposer and a seconder for actually what you want yet. So be thinking about that. So, Mr. O'Connor.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to try and answer any questions, even though unfortunately I've had nothing to do with this. But obviously I'm doing it on behalf of Mike, so I will try and answer any specific questions any members would like to put out there. If I can't, like I say, I will make a note of it, and I'll get Mike to contact them direct if that's okay.
Right. Okay. I think then it basically will be determined then by what is proposed and seconded and carried. Mr. Hook, you're indicating to speak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I agree with what's been said by Councillors Thomas, Saunders and Simmons. In particular, I wanted to address the issue of cycling because I know at an early stage as was being thought about, there was some concern that a rank of parked cars would be bad for cyclists. It would give them less space. But I've spoken to members of the local cycling club, and when I described this to them, they thought it was quite a good idea. And they made the point to me that in the new highway code, a cyclist should be in the mid position of the road anyway, so the cars wouldn't change where a cyclist should now actually be on the new highway code. The consultation was fairly evenly split, but I think some of the 11 people who had concerns, we could probably meet those concerns. There were 2 people who said they were disabled and were concerned that they would find it harder to park because disabled people have a privilege vis-a-vis yellow lines, and they might not have a privilege with general parking bays. Of course, we can, as the report fairly concedes, we may be able to create a couple of disabled parking boxes for those people. And I think the air quality point goes both ways because there's already a lot of congestion there, and I'm not sure this would necessarily make it worse. And actually, as all the things that we're doing in Faversham is they promote more walking and cycling, that will help improve the air quality as people drive a bit less. So I think overall the balance of arguments is in favour of progressing with it. I think there are some nuances. I think the bus issue needs to be looked at. The X3, I believe, goes up this road under the bridge, and there might be another. I think the rail replacement buses might do when they run sometimes on a Sunday. But we can surely have a conversation with Stagecoach about configuring the parking bays in a way that is compatible for their buses. So I support what's suggested. I'll let, imagine Councillors Saunders and Thomas, as they're in the room, want to make the actual proposal, but I imagine it will be to proceed and further develop these ideas, and I support that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Chair. Just to confirm really what Councillor Hook was saying about cyclists, it's much easier to pass a stationary line of vehicles than to have traffic passing in both ways and then be passed by those vehicles. So I think this proposal would improve the cycling experience down the mall. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
So thank you, Councillor Simmons, and thank you, Chair. I'll go through the proposal again for everyone. So I'm proposing that whilst this committee notes the results of the swept path analysis, it does not agree to abandon the proposal, but supports on-street parking as a means of traffic calming along Forbes Road and its contribution to making 20 mile an hour on Forbes Road more self-enforcing. And further, Swale Borough Council should engage with Faversham Town Council and the Watling Ward members to seek solutions to any outstanding issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Right. I shall do a run through if there aren't any other. I can see Mr. Hook's got I presume that's a legacy hand, is it, Mr. Hook?
Yes, it is. Sorry, Jim.
I shall read through the people, and as Mr. Thomas has said, the proposal. Are you happy to second that? Right, so that's been seconded. I shall read through the list of councillors, and please indicate whether you're for, against, or abstained, or absent. Oh. I'm told nobody's absent, so I won't be ticking that box. Right, Mr. Baldock.
Agreed.
Oh, can't they? All right, okay, sorry. In which case, it's down to Mr. Dendor.
For.
Oh, we can't vote then.
You can't vote. I am told you cannot vote if you're online. So you'll have to, as the leader of the council, change the way things are.
Oh, such powers I wish I had.
John Wright is the next one, which is myself. I'm for Monique Bonnie.
For.
Alistair Gould.
For.
Elliot Chase. He's online. Gillian Saunders.
For.
David Simmons.
I'm for.
Yeah. Paul Stevens.
For.
Eddie Thomas.
For.
Peter MacDonald.
For.
And Jeff Tutt.
For.
Excellent. So that's a full house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 10-4. So that's carried in full. Thank you very much. Right, moving on. Item agenda 7, M2 Junction 5 update, which is verbal. Is somebody out there in the great wide world?
Yeah, hello there.
They can give us an update, please.
Yeah, hi, it's Daniel Rollinson. I'm the project manager for National Highways for M2 Junction 5. So I'll just give a short update of where we're at with the scheme. So the scheme is progressing well as planned. We're maintaining our open traffic end date of late in 2024. So yeah, probably just over a year and a half left of main construction. Landscaping etc. will continue into 2025, but the main road will be open by the end of 2024. So as I'm sure everyone's aware, we had a lengthy full closure of the eastbound slip roads up to and across Christmas, and reopened them at the end of January. So that was a good chunk of work that has now been completed. We continue our weekend closures of the A249 north of Stockbury roundabout. So just to do sort of drainage, central reservation works, and essentially get the new southbound diverge. So the new slip road that will go onto the M2 westbound, get that completed. By doing that means it will limit the amount of closures that we have to do between now and the end of the scheme north of the roundabout. Yeah, we're just progressing that. We're progressing the 2 new link roads. So the Maidstone Link Road, which is the one that takes the current Chestnut Street Maidstone Road up onto Old Street, and then the Old Street Link Road, which is at the bottom end of Old Street and will link with the roundabout. So we're focusing on those at the moment, which are progressing well, and they should be taking traffic in a number of months, probably towards the end of April. Towards the end of the spring. And then we'll conduct a traffic switch. So just sort of move the traffic off of the main line onto the new slip roads, which will allow us then to construct the central part of what will be the new flyover. We got through the winter, and the sort of bad weather that we've had. We've had some problems with statutory undertakers and things like that. But slowly they're getting out of our way now, which is allowing us a bit of a clear run. And as I said, although we've had to do some resequencing of works and our methodology, we're still maintaining our end date, which is the main thing. So yeah, and we continue to keep people updated with any closures that we've got. Work with KCC to combine closures as well as our own internal operations departments as well. So yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now up until sort of spring, summer, when you will start to see some of the new roads opening and the traffic switching. Happy to take any questions if anybody wants to know anything specific.
Yeah, I've got some councillors that wish to put their 2 pence worth in. I would like to just make the comment, having or living in Hartlip, certainly the A2 and all the country lanes leading from your site at Junction 5 have been obviously seriously impacted by the works that you've done in terms of heavy vehicles and volumes of traffic. And now the country lanes that people have used as rat runs need quite a number of potholes and verge side repairs, and in places they are very dangerous. I know you've been, as contractors, have been very good in helping out some community efforts in various villages. It would be really good, and I know at times there are overorders of tarmac and other materials, that maybe you could go out and liaise with Kent County Council and fill some of these verge side holes, potholes in, because there are some serious issues. I think we've been very lucky recently with the lack of rain, because normally the potholes get filled up with rain, and then cyclists and other road users can't see those dangers, and they are dangers. So would you like to comment on whether you would be happy to work in conjunction with KCC and the excess material that you have to repair the damage that's been caused because of the diversions from Junction 5? Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, we don't really have excess material. So kind of our subcontractors come in and do shifts of pavement. No material is wasted. If material is wasted, then it means it's not reusable. So we don't order material in bulk and store it. We have had conversations with Kent at a high level. We've been feeding back from the various parishes about affected roads to Kent, and they've conducted their own inspections. It's not something that we can do, is go out and repair the local authority roads. As you know, it's their statutory duty to maintain these roads, and we support where we can. But it's not. There's a number of reasons why we can't do that. First and foremost, it's because it's not our responsibility. And if we were to go out and repair roads that are not of our responsibility, and then that road would say subsequently fail, then it would come back to us. Not saying it would fail, but that's just sort of one of the reasons. We have a very clearly defined area of the site and the site boundaries that we are responsible for. We try and discourage rat running as much as possible. We know rat running is a significant problem in the area, and it was before we arrived. Although I absolutely agree that our works will have had a more of an adverse effect as well. But it's not something that we would look to do outside of our scheme extents. Or however, as I said, we are supporting KCC in feeding back and encouraging inspections wherever possible.
Thank you for that. I suspect you're going to get a lot of that. I shall go over to other councillors. Monique Bonnie.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Monique Bonnie here. I represent Robersham, Bacchild, Tunstall, Milstead and Bredgar. So the rat running problem has been pretty excessive, and I'd say that between Sittingbourne and Faversham, obviously where those closures have been before, we've seen a massive erosion on the sides of the country lanes, and in particular any country lane that comes off the A2 between Sittingbourne and Faversham has been really affected. I've never seen, in fact, I had 2 punctures in the space of 6 weeks where stuff has been dragged off the sides of the roads, so many flints. And I think my fellow villagers would say the same, the state of the roads, because so much traffic has not been able to come through Junction 5. So it's costing us in tyres, but it's also costing us in damage to our own vehicles and our own property, and particularly where our drives meet these country lanes and they've been eroded. But the other thing is, last week I drove from the Highlands of Scotland all the way to Kent, and it is shameful, Junction 5, the state of it around Junction 5 with the amount of rubbish. It is obscene. And the slip road off the motorway, which is, I understand, your responsibility, I would plead with you that you litter pick it. We have a number of residents have complained to me, but also businesses, tourism businesses, who say that, you know, the welcome to the area is just littered with bottles of urine, crisp packets, you know, cans and bottles. It is totally shameful. I have spoken before to Highways England about the state of this before the works were started, and I was assured that it would be regularly litter picked. But I've seen some of the construction works going on, and it looks to me like stuff's either being buried or shredded by, you know, some of the equipment that's being used. So my plea is, please, can we get some of this removed, especially when you're doing closures?
Thank you. Yes, yeah, I mean, we do litter picks. It is a constant battle, and it is difficult to stay on top of, if I'm completely honest with you. And there's areas, sort of the slip roads being a prime example of, it's not always possible to go out and litter pick without closing it. And you know, so we would try to combine that with when we do have closures. I am looking at doing a litter pick. In actual fact, our main focus at the moment of doing a litter pick would have been down Chestnut Street, Maidstone Road, due to the fact that it's been used as a diversion route frequently. But I will absolutely feed that back. And whilst we've got the closures north of the roundabout, there's no reason why we can't do a litter pick within our area. There is further up past our works is still the responsibility of it's still National Highways, but not of the scheme. But I will absolutely feed them back. And I think they did a litter pick not so long ago, and they do them fairly frequently. But as I said, it is a constant battle. But I absolutely acknowledge what you say. I will take that back.
Thank you. Peter MacDonald.
Yes, Councillor MacDonald. I'll just go through my experience. I did operate a very large transport company and a couple of ships, and also in construction. So I'm quite used to road construction and things like that. I'd say that part of the effect of these rat runs is due to the length of time that the contract has taken, particularly Junction 5, which was a very extremely busy junction. And the fact that they weren't working 24/7, there's no properties around. So I think somebody took their eye off the ball with regard to the contract, because if we'd been working on it, we'd have worked 24/7. Yeah, it's more expensive, but overall it wouldn't be, because the time would be much shorter. Litter picking 249, absolutely appalling as well. So that's a trunk road, of course, the responsibility of the Department of Transport. Very concerned that you're considering closing the Stockbury roundabout, because the 249 carries an awful lot of traffic. And if that's closed, goodness knows where the traffic's going to go. It can't possibly go through Newington and along the A2. So it really does need somebody who knows the area to actually look at it very closely and minimise any kind of closure. And again, I would say that it ought to be 24/7. because there aren't properties around, so there's no excuse. You know, you can work on those things. We used to work at night, so I can't see any excuse at all. So it really does need, traffic management really needs to be looked at.
So if I'd just like to come back on that one. So just like to say that our principal contractor are absolutely incentivized to finish the job as quickly as possible, and there are incentives commercially for them to do that. It's not always possible to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are paid. We are funded by taxpayers' money. We have to work as efficiently as possible. So we can't just throw money at something. And also, it's not always logical to do that. There's times when concrete needs to cure, pavement needs to dry. There's things like that happen. It's not always possible to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It gets to a point where it becomes inefficient. The work that we did on the eastbound slip roads when we had them closed, the amount of work we conducted in those 20 weeks with the problems that we had was astonishing. You know, it's hard to understand unless you physically come down and see for yourself. But I can assure you, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way that the project is being delivered. In terms of Stockbury roundabout, I think possibly I wasn't clear. We're not closing the roundabout at any point. In actual fact, part of the reason why the project takes best part of 3 years to build is because we are maintaining the as much capacity of the A249 as possible. So as you can see, we don't have narrow lanes in place. We still have 2 lanes on each of the arms. And what we will be doing is and the reason why we're constructing the new slip roads now and the dedicated slip roads is because the traffic from the A249 will move on to those and maintain a through route across the roundabout, whilst we then construct some of the new flyover. So we won't be closing the Stockbury roundabout. So that was probably I probably wasn't clear on that one.
Thank you for that. And just to say, that, Peter, the motorway does get closed when there's a huge accident, and it all ends up along the A2 or the M20, and it's chaos, absolute chaos, as it is the country lanes, because they come off at Farthing Corner and use all the country lanes. So it is a nightmare. Councillor Mike Dendell.
Thank you, Chair. 2 of the points I was going to raise have been raised already. I'll just add a third one very quickly. I just wonder how I forget the name, sorry, feels about the problems with changing the lanes recently. I travel, as I think you do, Chair, down the Detling Road, and there has been so many near misses and people trying to cross the lane to make sure they don't get caught going coastbound when they want to get onto the 249 towards Sittingbourne. I must say, though, I have to say that the signage I found absolutely fine. There were signs all the way down the road to the junction. So I'm not blaming the contractors at all, but simply saying, because that improved, people got used to it. And as that danger, it got a bit less recently, I hope so.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we did notice when we reopened the slip roads and we changed the lane setup that there were instances in the first few days of people not following the route. You know, as you say, the signage is more than ample. I think it's just people who know the area, particularly, just kind of driving autopilot, if you like. The way the lanes are set up approaching the roundabout, it has to be that way because of the amount of traffic that either goes onto the eastbound slip roads or it goes straight over or ultimately right around the roundabout. Because of the way the traffic splits, we have to have it that way. We can only maintain 1 lane onto the A249 going north towards Sittingbourne, which means we can only have 1 lane feeding it off the roundabout. So any other setup would cause a huge overload on 1 particular lane. It was fully thought out. We looked at historic traffic counts of the vehicles travelling around the roundabout, and as I said, that's the only way it can be set up until we reopen the dedicated slip road onto the eastbound M2.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Whiting.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. And can I start just by thanking you for putting the item on the agenda for me? I think the number of speakers we've had indicates how important this item and the next one when we talk about Grovehurst and Key Street are for the residents of Swale. And I'd like to thank Dan for the update. As always, Dan is very honest in his answers, and he won't sugarcoat anything. And I think that's to be commended. I agree with those who spoke about the litter, and I really do look forward to the litter pick that Dan has just promised. Again, not just on the Highways England, the National Highways roads, which are the slip roads and the A249, but also on through Danaway and Chestnut Street. And my point really is about, we've talked about congestion on the country lanes, but we know that the works, particularly when the slip road was closed, have caused enormous congestion on the A2 right through from Raynham Mark to Faversham, and that was exacerbated, of course, if there was any other issues. What I'm seeking some assurance from Dan, if I may, through you, Chair, is that National Highways is coordinating with KCC, the utility companies, and Medway Unitary Authority with regards to planned roadworks along the A2, and also with KCC with the planned roadworks when they start at Grovehurst and Key Street. One of the main complaints I get is with all the traffic at the weekend going down the A2 through my patch in Tenham, you're confronted by 3 or 4 sets of utility lights between Tenham and Sittingbourne, or Tenham and Brenley Corner, and it's a huge frustration to my residents. And I'd like some assurance from Dan, please. Thank you, Chair.
So all our closures are done in conjunction with the local authorities and the emergency services. The eastbound slip roads, we were in discussion for a number of months. We had a number of calls with Medway Council involved, Kent County Council, emergency services, etc. And during those closures, Medway, for example, did put an embargo on works along the A2, albeit there were still some emergency works, which as they're called, they're emergency works. They can't always be taken off or resequenced. All our plan works. If there's any clashes or anything like that, they're all flagged up and they must be resolved. And any larger closures like the slip roads, they aren't just put in place. A lot of discussions are taking place before we do anything like that, as they did with the eastbound slip roads, as they will with any of our significant closures. So absolutely, all I can say is we do and we will continue to liaise with all the relevant people.
Thank you. John Fastenfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Presumably you can hear me.
Yep.
I'm a Borden parish councillor, and I think Borden is one of the worst affected parishes. So I would like to echo what Mike Whiting has said, and I think Daniel Rollinson is doing as good a job as he can do, given the complexities of this project. Let's remember that it's a £94 million project. But I have 2 questions of him. My first question is there anything further that you can do in conjunction with KCC Highways to keep the speed of traffic down in Maidstone Road and Chestnut Street? I've seen your recording, and colleagues will be aghast that vehicles travelling at 90 mile an hour, over 100 mile an hour, have been using this road, which is now a temporary 30 mile an hour speed limit. Is there anything that you can do to, say, put cameras up at the beginning and at the end with the police and prosecute these people who are driving like idiots? That's my first question. My second question is, you're diverting and creating the new Maidstone Road link and also improving O Street. But as you know, there's a section in between at Chestnut Wood, which is very narrow and very tight. Are there any plans have there been any plans developed with KCC Highways to improve this section? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So if at first I'll if I talk about the speeding, so we're absolutely aware that there are speeding issues, and as you said, we have been doing speed monitoring ourselves, which we've shared with the police. We've had a number of discussions with the police to encourage speed enforcement. Ultimately, we're not an enforcement agency, so it does fall down to the police, and we have been, and they have done a number of speed. Sort of ad hoc speed checks down there, as there are no permanent speed cameras. We've maintained the 30-mile-an-hour signs when in actual fact there's not actually a requirement for us to do that, and strictly speaking, it shouldn't really be 30 mile an hour because there's no works going on. But we've done that to try and help maintain the speed, albeit I recognise that people don't necessarily stick to it, unfortunately. We have ordered some speed what they're called sort of speed cameras, not speed cameras, speed camera signs, if you like. So they will be put up along Mason Road at Chestnut Street, probably a couple in each direction, to help try and discourage people. It's usually the fear of being caught that stops people speeding. So we have ordered those. We've currently got a temporary you've probably seen it, a temporary VMS sign up which captures people's speeds to try and again encourage them to slow down. Which is what records the speeds as well, which we continue to share with the police. And yeah, so we're doing what we can on that front. We're always looking at more stuff that we can do. We spoke to KCC about it before, but like I said, we're not an enforcement agency, so all we can do is work with the police and discourage the speeding as much as possible, really. So yeah, and then the second part, you are right. There is a pinch point, if you like, up on O Street, and what we're doing two things. First of all, we're in quite advanced discussions with Kent's Transportation Department about the new bus route. So obviously, it's because it's narrow there. It's not suitable for a bus. So we're looking at alternatives to that, which I'm confident that we'll be able to find an alternative to maintain some sort of public bus, probably just be some sort of smaller vehicle or something along those lines. In terms of it being used as a general route, we've just appointed a consultant to conduct a risk assessment of what that route will look like once the road reopens. That risk assessment will flag up any potential issues like the pinch point that you've noted, and anything else along Chestnut Street, Mason Road, anywhere that's a concern or that may be impacted by the road being used as a diversion route, for example, or anything like that. So once that is done, we will then sit around the table with Kent and with National Highways Maintenance team who look after the A249 itself, and we'll look at what mitigation we can or can be put in place or that is needed to ensure that that road is fit for purpose. So that work is underway at the moment.
Thank you. Mike Baldock, you've got a hand showing.
Yeah, thanks, John. A couple of other points have been made, but what I find quite frustrating is, as Dan mentioned earlier, Medway stopped all roadworks on the A2 during the big closure. I really do find that there's a lot of clashing roadworks that are causing people problems. I know this isn't Dan's fault, but as we've got KCC here, they really does need to be better coordination between the roadworks that the highways works that are being allowed. I understand about emergency works, but even some of them, it's turning out maybe aren't really emergencies. They're just not bothering to tell KCC in time. I think we do need to be strict on unnecessary roadworks that are taking place during this, because they're what really snarl up the back routes. That's it. Thanks, John. Don't know why my hand's still up.
I've got Mr. Blackburn.
Thank you, Chair. To come firstly to the point that's just been raised, as somebody that regularly tries to get a permit to work on the A2, I can assure you it's really, really difficult to get a permit to work on the A2. And when you do get a permit, the chances are it takes you 2 or 3 goes to actually build what you're trying to build, because somebody else has pinched your spot, and that's generally an emergency works from one of the statutory authorities. So rest assured, there are a lot of people put a lot of attention into trying to make sure that as little as possible is done on the A2 at any one time, because it's appreciated how much extra traffic has been taken because of the works that we're all talking about tonight. The other things I just wanted to touch on really were a lot of the works. I wouldn't like to guess how many roads we've got that are affected in the way that we started talking about at the start of the meeting, with sort of edge damage or haunch damage, as we call it. It's a really conservative guess would be a dozen roads that we're talking about here that have got quite substantial damage caused by these people using it as an unofficial diversion route. But I would also guess that maybe Maidstone have a similar number. And from talking to my colleague over at Maidstone, I know that's pretty much the case. I hear what Dan was saying about the problems, if you like, of trying to use their contractor to do the work, and knowing the roads concerned, pretty much every one of those roads would be a road closure to try and do the work. You really couldn't do it without a closure. They're just way too narrow. The point that I'd like to make is I think we'd welcome the chance to talk to Dan or his colleagues. You mentioned right at the start there were high-level discussions going on, which I guess are at sort of Simon Jones director level. But within those meetings that happen, I think we'd really like to talk about how, if your contractor's not going to do them and we're doing them, how we could go about paying for them. And I'm hoping that conversation can happen. Thanks very much.
Yeah, the conversations are happening at Simon Jones level, and I know he's involved. Yeah, in terms of payment, I'm not privy to those discussions. All I would say is, yeah, it's obviously it's a statutory duty to maintain the roads, and yeah, we try and discourage your use where possible, but ultimately we can't be held responsible for driver behaviour and drivers that choose to ignore diversion routes and take rat running roads. It would be an incredible precedent to set. For us to go out and start maintaining roads that are unfortunately not within our control.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there are discussions going on, and Simon Jones is aware, and he has been conducting inspections as far as I'm aware.
Right. Thank you for that, Dan, and thank you for that, Alan. All I would say is, for Chairman, and I think all the councillors sitting here and on the net would agree that something has to be done sooner rather than later, because as I said in my 5 minutes worth, if we get rain and those potholes and those verge side holes get covered in water, there will be a serious accident. That we're not talking about potholes that are just an inch or two deep. We are talking holes that are 6, 7, 8 inches deep. And cyclists or horse riders or motorists will lose tyres. Somebody will get seriously hurt. So for Alan and for Dan, those conversations are all very good to talk, but the people sitting in this room and residents actually want action and something done. So if you could take that away and pass that on to the powers that be, those roads seriously need to be looked at. Dan, I don't know whether at this point you want to just comment on agenda item 12, which was the comments that we had back from the DFE, and whether there are any further movements forward in terms of a crossing over the A249, because obviously it's cut off while we've got you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure when this okay, yeah. So I held a meeting just prior to Christmas with Helen Whately about this item, with members of KCC were there as well, and my director was there. So we had a discussion about it, and you know, in terms of a vehicular crossing over the A249, it's firmly with KCC. It was deemed by the Department for Transport as to be not part of this this project, and I believe the Department of Transport have also ruled that it will not be delivered, and that's as far as it's gone. I know Miss Waitley was going to take it away and speak to the Secretary of State around it. But that, and I think she wrote a letter, but that's the last I heard of it. As far as we're concerned, that vehicle bridge will not be delivered. So unless Department for Transport change their mind on that, that's the ruling. We did look at a pedestrian bridge, which I think that letter refers to. But unfortunately, we weren't able to gather enough support, primarily from the Stockbury parish itself, to progress that. There was no support for the demand of it from Stockbury, and as its primary use was to connect the two sides of Stockbury, without their support, it was just not something that could be progressed. So that's where that one is.
The reason they don't support the footbridge is because they want a road crossing.
I
So
absolutely agree. Yeah,
that is the reason for it.
Yeah. I agree, and we try to make it clear that the two aren't mutually exclusive, and the footbridge was something that could be delivered in a shorter timescale. But it just wasn't something, and I understand the point of view. If they believe that it would take away from their case for a vehicle bridge, I understand that. But unfortunately, for their own reasons, they couldn't give us that support, which meant that we could not progress that.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, and obviously, I think it's probably for Stockbury and the residents to take the action and maybe do a sit down on the A249. Although I wouldn't, or glue themselves to, if there are any greenies around, to the road. Sorry, I shouldn't be.
No.
But for people who live in the area, to have no benefit whatsoever is terrible, really. Right, moving on. Thank you for that. Agenda item 8, Key Street and Grovehurst roundabouts. Please, can we have an introduction first from the officer, please?
Good evening, Chair. I'm Sophia Ram. I'm the Assistant Project Manager from the Major Capital Programme team who's working on the scheme. I'm supporting Richard Shelton on the delivery. Unfortunately, he's not able to attend this evening, so I will do my very best to answer any questions, but it might be that I need to take these away and report back to the board. Nothing from the report has changed. I'll provide a quick verbal update on the kind of key items. In regards to Key Street, the development of the detailed proposals for the improvements were on hold, and we were waiting the outcome of the developer's application to discharge planning conditions, which means that's now been approved, which means we can progress with the detailed design at Key Street and incorporate the approved developer roundabout. A further update will be provided once we have the programme from the developer, and alternative arrangements will be looked at if there's a delay. We've obviously got a funding deadline to work towards, so we can't afford any further delays at Key Street, but we'll be in close consultation and conversation with the developer to ensure that those conversations move forward. In regards to Grovehurst Road, that's a little further on. We're currently going through procurement to appoint a contractor for the main works. Advanced works on site currently. Ground investigation works were completed last year alongside some archaeological investigations, but some further mitigation works have been required. So they've actually started on site this week to do some further digs. We don't anticipate there to be anything show-stopping, but it's just some further mitigation works that was required of the county archaeologist. Vegetation clearance works are underway. If anyone's been near the site recently, it's looking a little different. This was done in advance of the bird nesting season, so we've got a lot of the vegetation out of the way to prevent any delays to construction starting. In terms of the environmental aspects, water voles have been identified on site. We've got a mitigation strategy in place, and they will be translocated the end of, well, we're looking at probably March now. We need it to be slightly warmer, but there's a plan for those. And we also started the reptile translocation last year, and that will be completed this year, March, April. In terms of, it was referenced before, the interface that there is with National Highways and the work that they're doing at M2 Junction 5. We have ongoing conversations to understand their programme, and there has been a decision taken to delay any works involving traffic management at Grovehurst Road until July 2023 to ensure that there isn't two sets of traffic management in close proximity. Some of the key dates, Key Street, we're looking to commence works January 24. This year we'll be completing the detailed design, going through the procurement and awarding the contracts. But yeah, we're looking at January 24 start. In terms of Grovehurst Road, we are currently going through the tender process. We are looking to award the contract for the main works in April, and we're looking to be on site from May 23. The good news from the tender process, there was some worry, but with the returns, it looks like the initial indication is that the tender prices are in line with the budget allowance. So we have a deliverable scheme, which was something that we weren't too sure that we would have. So that was, yeah, that was quite pleasing.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. And that was a major concern of mine, and one of the reasons why I thought it was important that this came to the meeting, just to check that that would carry on and it wouldn't denigrate in terms of the quality of the project. I've got no indications in the room, but I do have Councillor Mike Baldock and Councillor John Fessenfeld indicating, are they legacy hands?
No.
They're not legacy hands, so Councillor Baldock then.
Thank you, John. Councillor White. Yeah, I've got a few concerns about the diagram. So I have to say, I'm disappointed there hasn't been any conversation or consultation with either Bobbing or Borden Parish Council, despite the fact that they were both promised there would be consultation on this roundabout design. There seems to be some significant changes here, which have really undermined some of the impact of what was proposed. There's no longer a priority lane from Sittingbourne onto the 249. I don't know if this is the latest, most up-to-date map, because it's actually got a date of 2020 on it. That I thought one of the important things that it was supposed to achieve was a priority lane from Key Street onto Chestnut Street. That seems to have gone. I'm not sure how the cycling lane works now. There's no crossing of Key Street, but I can see at the near the junction, which takes away what is currently there, and it's going to be even harder to cross there. So concerns about that, and I'm still wondering what the design plans with regards to planning reference 500-727 are. Is that going to be allowed to turn right traffic leaving that that development, in which case it's going to really impact on the traffic coming out of Key Street. And I don't recall this little link road between Chestnut Street and the A249 on slip previously. I was wondering what the purpose of that was. And there's quite a bit of this that seems to be currently outside of the highway boundary. Are all the ownership issues resolved? Thanks, John.
Okay.
So in terms of consultation, I think that the thought process was that we needed to make sure we knew what the scheme was looking like. Because of the developer roundabout on Chestnut Street, it was unclear for a while the best route to take and the best design option to take. the roundabout design and delivery will be the ownership of the adjacent developer, and we will be tying into that with the Chestnut Street and then the slip road that will be coming off and joining the 249. In terms of design changes, I can get back to you on that. This is only outline design, as I said, so now we have the outcome of the discharge that's been approved. Sorry, when we've got that, we know what scheme we're going to progress with, and we can go through the detailed design, which will be in consultation with adjacent parish councils. So that's something that we will be talking to Borden and Bobbin about.
Right. Okay, cheers.
Okay, Councillor Fassenfeld.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a few points. If I could refer to the report that's been in front of us. If I go to section 3.3, it says the improvements are considered permitted development, so a planning consent is not required. The Parish Council recently wrote to the Minister for Roads and also to National Highways, particularly about the fourth arm, which is the new slip road from the Chestnut Street roundabout onto the A249. Bearing in mind this fourth arm will reduce this slip road from something like 90 metres, from something like 270 metres to 70 metres. We've got very considerable concerns about the safety of this, but both the Minister and the Chief Executive of National Highways actually said to us that the Parish Council would have an opportunity to make their comments through the planning process. Now, that's my first question. My next question relates to section 3.4, which is the design of the scheme. It would appear from the design of the scheme that the existing footpath on what I call the north side of Chestnut Street is no longer there. It's just classified as a verge. And I, like Councillor Baldock, are wondering what the slip road or the new road from Chestnut Street to the old slip road, what purpose is that? I fully agree with Councillor Baldock regarding the development of Manor Farm, which he mentioned. And I also would like to ask, has the fourth arm, which I just referred to, the slip road from the Chestnut Street roundabout, has that design been agreed with National Highways? Now, my next question relates to section 5.2, the Communication Engagement Plan. Again, I support what Councillor Baldock has said. Way back in March 2021, Simon Jones wrote to the parish saying that we would be consulted on any future design. Since March 2021, we've heard nothing. I think that's appalling. Bear in mind the impact of this scheme on the local parishioners. Now, my final comment regards section 6.2, which talks about the money that is being provided for this scheme. And I'm rather surprised that the contributions from BDW, that's the developer of the Wises Lane, 750 houses, I'm surprised that their section 106 agreement isn't included in that section 6.2. It relates to roughly £1.34 million for the Key Street roundabout improvements and £0.885 million for the southbound slip. So I'm rather surprised that those contributions are not mentioned, but there may be a good reason. I may not be aware of it. So I'll be grateful either now or possibly sometime in the future for some answers to my questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
I'm going to take those. Go on then.
I'll do my best. In terms of the safety, particularly the on-slip to the A249, we are currently developing a brief for a road safety audit. So that will be taken into account and will be assessed. In terms of National Highways approval, the final detailed design will be subject to their approval. So that will need to go through their approval scheme, approval process even, in which they will be able to make comments and suggestions. communications and engagement, absolutely. The plan is being developed now, and that will be in liaison with the main works contractor at Grovehurst, and they will have a public liaison officer who will be working on the scheme full time. So will enable some improved communication with the surrounding public and also local parish councils and interested and key stakeholders. I will get back to you on the Wisest Lane contributions and why that doesn't feature as part of this report. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I don't have any other indication. Oh, Councillor Money.
Yeah, sorry. So on the approval process, what are we expecting? Is that a public inquiry, or what would that process be, do we think?
In regards to national highways? Yeah. So no, generally not. They will consider that, and that will go through their technical teams, and to make sure that we are following due process and they're happy with the safety. And again, the road safety audit will be considered as part of that. In terms of consultation, I'm unsure of the plan going ahead and whether there'll be any further public consultation, but certainly communication and stakeholder engagement will be part of that.
So if I could just come back on that. So I think really, I think from listening to what the ward member leader said and the parish councillor is how we ensure that that happens. So I just don't want that to slip through the net. And also presumably because the A249 is held in, is it like an SPV vehicle, it's effectively run by, yeah, so it's a PFI thing, isn't it? And there must be some form of legal agreement between KCC and this limited company that runs the A249 and how that works and how these all interlink. So I suppose, is it at some point in the future we could have some clarity on that?
Yeah, a Section 6 agreement will be needed for the main works, both at Grovehurst Road and Key Street, with National Highways to be working on their asset.
Councillor, yes, Booth. Endall. I can't see.
Thank
your
you,
name,
Chair. I moved on to the Grovehurst roundabout. Just a couple of quick ones. It's maybe my misunderstanding. 3.17. It says delay the works involving traffic management until July 2023, which I heard you say earlier. Fine. But then you go down, you look at the schedule, and we see the commence works in May 2023. So I presume those are two different things. Really what I'm getting at, is it realistic that it will be completed by August 24? It seems quite a short timescale.
In regards to your first point, yeah, works will commence in May, but there will be no traffic management until July to mitigate against the works that are undertaken at M2 Junction 5. And in terms of programme, it's very, very tight. That's appreciated, but that is the programme that we have tendered for, and that's the programme that we're asking our contractors to work towards.
If I could come back, Chair, quickly. Yes, the roundabout on the Grovehurst Road North by the Pond Farm estate, is that going to be sooner rather than later in the programme?
The Section 278 is being drawn up at the moment, but it is going to be a requirement of that's delivered within the first 6 months of the project.
Excellent. I don't have any other indications, so are members happy to note the report? Yep, excellent. Right, moving on to agenda item 9, development and planning. This report was ready for noting as regards the planning and development process and how we engaged with that in terms of highways. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions on the report? Yes, Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, I seem to remember it was me who made this initial request. So I had 3 or 4 comments really, and they would lead to questions. I think it's helpful to have had the report and have the process outlined, and it's also pleasing to see that it references to the way that national policy is changing and how KCC highways are trying to change in relation to particularly taking more interest in pedestrians and cyclists. In asking to have the report, I certainly wasn't hoping that we'd spend loads of time at the JTB looking in detail at planning applications. So I think the officer can rest assured in relation to that. And my interest wasn't in blocking developments either. It was more the time lag between planning applications coming forward and developers making proposals for highways related proposals and things actually happening is massive, and often policy and the views of the local community have moved on. And I think in Faversham we've found there's a number of developer proposals that have been built out, and they feel rather old-fashioned. They're purely about the car, and there's one at the bottom of the Brogdale Road which has actually made it more difficult for pedestrians, and there are now loads more of them as a result of the Perry Court development to cross the road. So I'm hoping that we can get more help from KCC in terms of at least liaising with parishes. I accept that they wouldn't necessarily want to be politically influenced by them, but also that there must be a way that the Highways Authority and the Planning Authority can work together to prevent this kind of massive time lag and nothing being done to kind of update the particular proposals that come forward for highway work. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Tutt in the room, and then I've got Councillor John Fassenfeld after that. So, Councillor Tutt.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was fairly disappointed with the response. I thought it was quite dismissive of us all. It was pushing back at every turn. And I just wanted to point out one particular thing. It states in there that in accordance with MPPF, there is a presumption in favour of development, and it's a duty of KCC Highways to work with the developers to try and ensure that development can proceed. Now, that clearly is part of the MPPF, but it fails to take into account the exceptions that the MPPF have in place, that bold statement is not as it is. So a little bit of caution from county. They ought to be a bit more careful about it.
All I would say, Mr. Tutt, is that in planning you can argue both ways, either for or against a development. Sometimes using obviously policy from different parts of the policy manual, and the weight that is given to various policies is, I suppose, down to the officer and their professional judgment. Certainly, I can remember a personal case, where highways policy was completely ignored. But there we go. You know, it happens. I've
been involved with a lot of planning as well, John, Chair. But I think that bold statement doesn't reflect the National Planning Policy Framework.
And yes, Councillor Fassenfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's me again. I'll be short this time. I think I started this, or the parish started this, because of their large-scale development, 750 houses, which was been granted outline planning permission. But all of a sudden, we found applications to satisfy various conditions of that outline, and those applications were about building the new spine road, and the parish wasn't consulted. And I'm rather perturbed by the penultimate line on page 31, which says, our responses cannot be influenced by political persuasion. Now, is this officer aware that politics doesn't enter parish work? We are, as well as our ward members, concerned about the health and welfare of our parishioners. So often, because in my parish, there's 13 of us, we've got a little bit more knowledge about traffic conditions than the odd highways officer. So I'm a bit saddened by this report, I must admit, but I've said enough. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Dendell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just really going to have a rejoinder, as many in this room have been on planning for many, many years. I mean, you can, when the application comes through, as Councillor Tutt says, you can dig out all the exceptions. You can dig out all the conditions. That is the time that you find the material points on which you can refuse the application. So you do get a chance. If you believe that that is needed, then you can, of course, call it into the planning committee, and that's the time to do it, as I think we all know and have done many times. The one thing with planning that I have a problem is, I think with Councillor Fessenfeld said, is that when the conditions are in, they are more often than not flouted, and we haven't got the people and the time to enforce it. I've seen several developments where you go travelling down the road, you look at it and think, I never approved that. the flats are taller than I thought, or there's 5 houses there instead of 4. But of course, we haven't got the people or resources to go out and enforce and stop it. The famous one, of course, on Sheppey that we all know. So it's enforcement where I have the issue. But the planning committee does give you the chance to push in all the material reasons to refuse it, so you can do it.
Councillor Bonney, was that a raised hand or? Councillor Bonney.
Yeah, so I think I'd agree with the 2 previous speakers here. In particular, and I can think, so a good example would be the Stones Farm development, which curved the A2. And sometimes I do think there is the ground conditions, so things on a hill, people don't take don't fully appreciate the implications of what's before them on a piece of paper, because it looks all right in the flat, but until you put it on a hill and you curve it and you've got an HGV hurtling down, and actually you've got conflicting speed signs, some are 30, some are 40, and then you go through the conditions and you realise things like landscaping. I mean, we have some appalling landscaping that was conditioned on that particular development, where we've got weedy flat grass, close bordered fencing, and on the other side you've got a beautifully landscaped bund to a development. But why is it that us as the taxpayers and the councillors that represent those people have been landed with what I quite frankly is shoddy landscaping, cheap landscaping, was allowed to be passed as a condition, and that condition, as you say, was discharged by the officers saying, yeah, that's suitable, that's adequate, when we were all jumping up and down saying it's totally inadequate. I mean, that's just a practical one-off example there of where actually the officers listening and all their colleagues, please take note, because when we're deciding a planning application, we're quite time limited. There is a list of sometimes 20, 30, 40 conditions. It is very difficult to go through and analyse every single one of those without having, and what we don't have on planning applications, and I crib about, is not having full-scale plans, details of all those elements that go with the conditions. And actually, if you look at the latest revised wording on the NPPF, they're saying that when you set conditions, it must be clearly set out what the specification is. And part of that specification is having detailed maps with each of those conditions, so those of us sitting on committee can see that and it's to hand, not that we're burying them in 2,000 documents on a portal. And I think the highways officers, when it's subject to condition there, should be highlighting to those members exactly what that detail is. Not, yeah, KCC highways haven't got a problem with this, because that just doesn't wash.
Thank you, and I'd agree with that. I mean, I can think of Eden Village, and all the land issues, whether it be Swale Borough Council, Kent County Council, and some infrastructure that wasn't finished, such as mini roundabouts that weren't landscaped properly, and all sorts. So I can see where you're coming from. Does the officer want to come back? I know this report's just for noting, but there were one or two questions that were raised. Would you wish to?
If I could come in there, Chair. The officer that actually wrote the report isn't here tonight. The name's on the back there, Sally Benge, Transport Development and Planning Manager. But I'll do my best to make sure that the comments that are being raised there this evening will be passed back to Sally for her thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So are members happy to note the report and hopefully get some answers that will come back? Okay. Agenda item 10, Highway Works Programme. Would the officer like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you again, Chair. This is the usual report that we see at each JTB. It just gives the remainder of the programme for this financial year, and also the first sort of one or two schemes for next year. But at the next JTB, you'll obviously have the programme for next year. But no, it's just a conclusion really of what works have been carried out for this year and those that may have been carried into next year. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Mr. Blackburn. I have no indication. One or two. Right, the order I saw it was Councillor Bonney, Councillor Tart, Councillor MacDonald.
So just commenting on that, you know, we talk about programme works and we just talked about Junction 5. So here's a classic one, Tenham resurfacing, which is the whole way through Tenham. And, you know, what's going on with Junction 5 works. I just, you know, I can't compare the two of when they're happening, but all I can say is every time something happens on the A2 through Tenham, as Councillor Whiting mentioned earlier, it's total chaos.
Councillor Tutt.
Thank you, Chair. The first item there is Canterbury Road, Bolton under Blean. For the 10th time, it's actually Dunkirk. It's a thing that goes through this report and through the planning reports. The officers often put places that are in Dunkirk as Bolton, and it's not.
Thank you. Mr. MacDonald.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Checkers Road, Minster, footway to a small housing development. Yes, they've done very well. It's then referred on to from 3108 to 003337. But unfortunately, there's another development next door that's just taken place, and it appears that someone's taken their eye off the ball. It hasn't got a continuation of the footpath to join up with another footpath which goes through to Checkers. There are no footpaths on that part of Checkers Road. So I think somebody needs to urgently look at it and see whether you know, anything can be done about it, because eventually it'll have to cost the county taxpayer money instead of the developer, which I don't think is quite right. The other one is, and I've lost the place unfortunately, is down the bottom of Scockles Road on the corner of Elm Lane. The developer there has taken out some of the hedge they weren't supposed to. They bulldozed it over, and it seems to me that the curb that they've put in actually causes a problem because it sticks out into the road. They've done some of it correctly and the width of the road, but where it joins Elm Lane, and that has had loads of people hitting drainage, you know, curbs, and it doesn't seem to line up. So, you know, again, there's a missed opportunity. Get somebody else to pay for it. But they've actually, you know, well, we came on to Elm Lane, but I have actually dealt with the highways on that they've bulldozed the drainage ditch, and so now the road floods, and it's in an awful state. But anyway, I think highways are actually dealing with that. So well done to highways.
Thank you for that. Can the officers just confirm that they'll be coming back to members, the individual members, on those specific points that they've raised before I move on to?
I can. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I can, Chairman. I've written down the details of what's just been raised there, particularly the 10 and 1, but also the Checkers Road. I've written those down, and apologies to Councillor Tutt. And I think actually the person that did the report actually got it right on the last JTB and actually wrote it down as Dunkirk, and then it's appeared on here again as Blean. So apologies for that. But yep, the other points will be brought up with the officers concerned.
Okay, thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Simmons next, and then Councillor Steve Davey, and I haven't got any others.
Thank you, Chairman. I just can't resist pointing out the irony of page 42, which lists 54 lampposts which are going to be replaced in the week that the Borough Council decided to reduce and then finally cut the parish lighting grant to parish councils, who would have to pay for the cost of replacing lampposts themselves, whereas these are all adopted by KCC and therefore paid for by KCC. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Davey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah, I just, seeing as Alan's in the room, I'd like a bit of clarity on SW 003117, page 49, the crossing in North Street. I've had some concerns coming from residents over the way the drop-off is being used, the fact that there doesn't appear, or there hasn't been any parking restrictions, and also that they're now parking on what was a little grassed area. Now, I seem to put trees in, but the reason they took the trees out the first time was because it reduced visibility, and also only one shroud has been fitted where the initial plan was to fit 2. Is it possible to have an update? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't give you an update on that at the moment. Probably Justine Cook, I think, would be the right person for that, and I'll get her to contact Councillor Davey and give him the details on it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Adam.
Councillor Mike Dandor.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I'd get on the list. I've got 2, Snips Hill, Earlborner. I'd like to know what the exact current situation there is with the drainage improvement, the SUDS retrofit, which I think we all know all the flooding issues that have been on Snips Hill. And the other one is, just trying to find it, further down, and it's quite interesting to note the heading, which I would totally agree with, casualty reduction measures. Which is the Sheppey Way stroke Bobbing Apple by Bobbing Apple and McDonald's, a new roundabout junction there. Again, I'd like to know exactly what the current situation is. It says here, construction currently expected during summer 2023. So it'd be nice to know if that is still on the go. Thank you.
Okay. Alan.
Yep, they're both noted. Thanks. So come back to the first one that you mentioned, Snips Hill. You mentioned Earlborner. Is that something you've already been discussing that with Earlborner recently? Because I think that also came up at the last JTV, if I'm right. Is that something you've had a recent discussion on, or not?
Some time ago, yes, okay. Alan. There's a number of elements to it. There's the Coombe Drive, the Lansdowne Road, all those improvements, and then of course the SUDS at the top. Yeah. I can't remember with Earl if we actually got to the SUDS.
Okay, no problem. I'll pass it on to Earl and get him to contact you. Thank you.
That's funny.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yep. Right, let me find the circles. I know we've discussed it before, but I can't remember what the answer was. On Neuralink Way, so this is down near where the scrap metal yard is and the new Red Row development. Because here, I think on page 49, SW003097, it says agreement in place, works underway. This is a new bell mouth for the thing. And then under SW003084, I think that's all related on the same one. And it says site access with a new crossing scheme. I know something's put in the middle of the road near the scrap merchants, but what we seem to have, and I've ended up calling one of the senior officers here, and obviously it's been in the newspaper since, is all these lorries parking up to get into the scrap metal yard. And it is a serious issue for pedestrians and anyone else, cyclists, where you can come off the motorway, the roundabout there, and you're literally faced with the back end of a juggernaut. It's unbelievably dangerous. And I don't know what these works are to the Red Row one, or if it's indeed this bit near the scrap metal thing, but something absolutely needs to be done there. It's so dangerous.
All I can say is that has been mentioned before, and I think the crossing is for the development further up the road.
Sorry if I could come in there. I totally agree with Councillor Bonney. There is a crossing, a pedestrian crossing further up, which has now been completed. What Councillor Bonney is talking about, there's a refuge in the middle of the road, exactly opposite the entrance to APM Metals. And it is ridiculous. It is so dangerous.
Yeah.
The lorries are now tracking up Neuralink Way, but they're having to stop further up, because if they stop by the refuge, the traffic is head on to the traffic coming up from the roundabout.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
And I
That
think that new crossing point has made it even worse, because where they previously pulled in, they can't because there's a crossing. So you're now faced with double parking on both sides of the road in some instances. We're going to have a death there, I think.
I mean, if I can add also, you say about pedestrians, there is a bus stop across there, and I've had several cases where children, school children, having to cross that road to get to the bus stop. And of course, they're going between the lorries.
Yeah.
Which is that whole situation there, I totally agree with Councillor Bonney, is highly dangerous.
Well, this issue has cropped up at briefing and with officers. I've mentioned it. I think, and certainly I think SBC officers, highways officers, have also looked at the parking and on-street parking that's happening there as well. They have suggested that if yellow lines are placed there, then it might just displace it further on down. But I think you're both quite right that it needs probably a proper report to come back on this.
Yeah, I agree with that. So if we can, because I think this is, where we've got development and you're putting in a crossing has actually made a problem even worse than it was beforehand. I mean, the fact you've got lorries parking on pavements is such an impediment to, if you're disabled or you've got a pushchair, young children, and there is nowhere to go other than onto an extremely busy road there.
Right.
So,
okay. I mean, I'm in favour of that and would support that. I'm sure both you would.
Yeah.
Could I ask the officer and to certainly have that tabled for the next meeting? And can you just confirm that would be okay for a report from KCC to come back to the JTB on that issue? We have talked about it before.
Yes, I couldn't really comment on who you may have spoken to within KCC. I'm sure you have had discussions with other people, so I'm not sure who would be writing such a report, but I've certainly made a note of it and put an asterisk next to it saying it's a request for a report at the future JTB. So hopefully we can try and make that happen.
one thing I would like addressed on that, and specifically, is why we are allowing a business to effectively use our highway as a car park, because we wouldn't tolerate it anywhere else.
Well, I think we've highlighted that, but it's certainly an issue. So, are there? I've got Mr. Winklis.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm almost losing my voice, but I've got a quick question for Alan. It's been an ongoing issue, and Alan's had various email correspondence with me and another officer in connection with the warning sign being put up in Saffron Way, warning pedestrians, warning motorists, rather, pedestrians, are you crossing the island crossing to Green Porch? I was first told this was going to be done on 14th of December and the money was allocated, and there's still no action on this. Can you give us any further update on this, please, Alan? Thank you.
Councillor Winkler, I just wonder if you can remember the name of the person that you originally spoke to about it. Was it Paul Brand? Does that ring a bell? Oh, maybe not. I'll look into it and try and get a response back. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I have no others in. Oh, sorry. Can I take Mr. Gould first, and then I'll come to you, Peter.
Thank you. It's just on the flood or drainage improvements in Selling. I see that the Gushmere Court one has hopefully started. But the ones for the area underneath the railway bridge is on hold until that's been done. As that started, have we got a programme for when the railway bridge one will be addressed? Because that's been a very, very long-standing problem with numerous stranded cars there over the years. And yeah, we'd just like to know, it just seems to be from the report that it's going to be put off for a while. Alan.
I'm sorry, I knew this one was coming up, and I have tried to get the answer today because I was fairly sure that it'd be raised, but no, sorry, I haven't been able to get a date when it's going to happen. All I've heard is it follows on from the other scheme, but I'll try and get something for you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McDonald.
Yes, just very quickly,
they have put yellow paint on the road under the bridge.
Okay. Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, it's just the slips, Scott, which is 3423, and the curbing that they put in, frankly, isn't in line.
Okay. Can we note all of that? And can officers get back to the various councillors on the questions that are raised? Thank you. So can members note the report? Yay. Item 11, progress update report. Can we have any updates from officers, please?
Hello, Chair. This is Jamie Watson, KCC, Active Travel Manager. This is an information item on the Active Travel update, but I'll give a brief summary. Active Travel England has recently been set up as an executive agency for the Department of Transport and is responsible for the assessment and approval of submissions for funding specific schemes, as well as providing funding for network planning and scheme development. You'll be aware of the Active Travel Fund, as KCC has been working with all districts and boroughs since 2020 in relation to this fund. At present, KCC is working on consultations and delivery of Tranche 2 and Tranche 3 schemes that were successful in gaining funding and is now looking towards the Tranche 4 bidding process, with submissions actually due last Friday, the 24th. KCC was required to self-assess on our capability and ambition and giving ourselves a level 1. Level 1 being some local leadership and support with basic plans and isolated interventions. The majority of councils nationwide self-assessed as level 1. So we've got a bit of work to do to move up the levels in Active Travel England's minds. KCC was successful in gaining 565,000 from the Capability Fund, which will help districts and boroughs achieve their aims and objectives. This figure was based on the level 1 self-assessment. Swale Borough Council has been allocated £40,000 for further local cycling and walking infrastructure plan development, scheme planning and design, with agreements to be completed shortly between KCC and Swale Borough Council. Also, KCC has recently commissioned ACOM to help produce a Kent cycling and walking infrastructure plan to help KCC focus on areas it feels should be the priorities. This is still in its infancy, but as the aim of this setting clear priorities to infrastructure requirements by building a picture of all districts and boroughs' walking and cycling aspirations. It is likely to focus on specific urban areas, rural and semi-rural areas and corridors, with principles applied backed up by key national policy drivers such as the second cycling and walking investment plan, gear change, and so on. To help officers, a KCC cycling and walking member group has been set up, chaired by David Brazier, and with cross-party involvement. This group meets bi-monthly. In relation to the Tranche 4 active travel bid, we asked all districts and boroughs to provide us with their the top 3 schemes they would like to progress, and in priority order. This alone produced 36 schemes plus schemes we had already identified from previous rounds, so some 80 odd schemes in total. There was an obvious need to sift through this list to come up with schemes we felt stood the best chance of being successful in gaining funding, with Active Travel England giving us quite specific criteria to meet. Since the report was produced, Active Travel England have stated that KCC's indicative value to bid for is 2,769,000 for both construction and development schemes. The good news is that Faversham Town pedestrian route improvements, the Crosstown scheme, has been successful in progressing through the sifting process, has indeed been put forward as a construction scheme for 23-24 with an estimated value of £995,000. If successful, KCC will have 12 months to progress the scheme to at least a commitment to build with a contractor. This will mean that KCC and Faversham Town Council, along with Swale Borough Council, will need to work closely together to enable this tight timescale to be met. And we should be informed of the decision around the 20th of March 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I haven't got any indications. I have. Mr. MacDonald.
Me again. Yeah, with regard to walking, can we please, county officers, have a look at Scockles Road, because the footpaths are the only route to the 2 primary schools. So, of course, nearly all the children are taken by car. They can't walk. Some of the path is only, I can only go in imperial size, less than a foot wide. In some places there isn't any, and there's posts on them. Before the war, the county actually sorted out Minster Road, and that was the county. And I think they really ought to have done Scockles Road and got the developers to pay for it, because we've got something like 4,500 extra properties.
I've got Councillor Steve Davey indicating online, or is that a legacy hand? Oh, it's gone off, so it must have been a legacy. Councillor Bonney.
Great. I think it's all well and good having these policies and looking at these policies, but I think there's some things that KCC could do to help itself. And not least, if I think about the myriad of signboards, A-boards that litter various high streets, that are trip hazards, that are impediments to people with pushchairs and wheelchair users. So if I can plead that in these policies that we actually start taking some responsibility for enforcement of things that within your grasp and control, that would be most helpful, because, you know, we've already got the streets there. We don't have to create any new ones. We just need to make sure they're clutter free.
Thank you. Councillor Gould.
Thank you. It's just a more general point. you're talking about a Kent cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Having had some experience with the Faversham one, I mean, it goes down to very, very granular detail to get schemes and proposals made. It's hard to see how that happens at a Kent level, and especially given the levels of funding. Although it's welcome that there is a couple of million, we just got to compare that to what's been spent on the roads. We've just been talking about it. It really doesn't go very far. So it's really sort of those two aspects of it. How does Kent isn't very local when it comes to a walking and cycling infrastructure plan.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Now, it is obviously hugely important in terms of getting the funding. And I think we do rely on good bid writing to central government, as well as obviously from developers, and trying to join it up as best we can. But would you like to have an official response from officers?
Yep, I certainly come back on that. It's much more of a strategic level. So we're not trying to replicate the local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, but to understand which each borough and district wants, and to include their LC WIPs within a much wider, more of a route study with sort of indicative routes rather than going into the detail. So it sits above sort of LC WIPs, more of a strategic document to help guide where to KCC to put their priorities.
Lovely. Okay, you've got to come back.
Just on the subject of routes, when it comes to walking and cycling, I think one of the key issues that often gets missed is that half a route is not much of an improvement in terms of making that modal shift. For a car, if it's better for half the route and not so good for the rest of it, you still go by car and you get there. But the difference between a half route for a cycle and the rest of it being positively dangerous just means you don't get it on the bike to do it, or you don't walk it. So I think those whole routes need to be delivered as whole routes and not in a piecemeal fashion, which just dilutes the effect of any funding that there is.
And I think you've just highlighted the importance of town councils, parish councils and Kent County councils to do that strategic planning. So it's about doing it and then finding the money. Can we note the report? It is there for noting. We did very quickly skip over item 12, the letter from the Department of Transport. I know we did briefly mention it when we had an officer here, but are there any comments that one would wish to make? And then that could be noted. Councillor Bonny.
Yeah, so I think this harks back to something I said more recently on the Lower Thames crossing, where you shouldn't say yes to something coming from government until you know exactly what you're going to get. And saying no to the point that you then got everything you wanted out of that negotiation. And I think this part here, where we're backwards and forwards between the community who feel they've been cut off, which they have, and then this substantial, junction upgrade for which actually the crossing is small fry in comparison. That now the community is effectively abandoned whilst ministers say, well, tough luck, basically. So I think the lesson should be learned that when we go forward with consultations, the answer is no, and here is our wish list until such time as you deal with it.
Any other comments on the letter? No? I wouldn't disagree too much with you there, Councillor Bonny. Having a strong hand. It is very difficult when it's outside of our area in terms of a district. It is obviously still Kent County Council, but as we know that part falls under Maidstone District Council, but obviously impacts the residents this side as well. But Yeah, I totally take your point. Okay, item 14 for noting only. Any issues that one wishes to make on that? I can't see any hands up on the internet, and I can't see any hands here. So we shall just note that. Item 15, the date of the next meeting, and the date of the next meeting is the 17th of May 2023. I won't be the chairman. That will be handed back over to Swale Borough Council. And we may be here, or say I'll be here, but I don't know whether that side will be here with us or not. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I close the meeting at 7:25. Thank you.